Chelsea reportedly agreed personal terms with Rayo Vallecano left-back Pep Chavarría, but the initial bid for the 28-year-old has been rejected, with Rayo Vallecano wanting a little bit more. Feels like we've been there recently. Price for Morgan Rogers has been revealed and it is eye-watering. And look, I'm not going to lie, I think it probably puts us out of the race. But in place of Rogers, Chelsea might be targeting breakout Bournemouth star Eli Kroupi. No club-to-club talks have yet started for Crystal Palace defender Maxence Lacroix. Everton are in talks with Chelsea to sign Tyrique George on a permanent deal. Andrey Santos has admirers and is not on the not-for-sale list. And we officially find out when the first batch of Chelsea players are expected to start training with Xabi Alonso. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC, and we're getting close to players again, but it looks like Chelsea just don't like paying money for old players, so let's find out what's going on. Fabrizio Romano posted this: Chelsea have agreed personal terms with Pep Chavarría as new left-back, green light from the player. Chavarría wants Chelsea and wants to play for Xabi Alonso. Club-to-club talks underway with Rayo Vallecano and deal close. Okay, so 28-year-old left-back. So this kind of puts the end to the Cambiasso noise, the Maxi Araujo noise. I would have thought it would be kind of wild if we do go for anyone else after this, because then we're going to have a lot of players that can play that position on our books. A lot of the news surrounding this as well has been about Yoro Hato, and supposedly he is going to be given a much bigger role for next season. So it's really interesting. With Pep Chavarría in particular, he can play left wing back, he can play left back, so he's very versatile. Obviously, there's potentially Valentin Barker coming in, although the deal hasn't actually been announced yet, so we'll have to see what happens with that. But then obviously you've got Yoro Hato, who definitely can play that left back and left centre back role. But he's a 28-year-old player, and Blueco do not like paying money for older players, do they? Pice posted this: Chelsea bid 10 mil for Chavarría but has been rejected. Rayo asked for above 15 mil. Chelsea is still confident and do not want to prolong unnecessary negotiations. The player has agreed to join. So Granit Xhaka and Pep Chavarría, these guys are well above the usual Leonardo DiCaprian age that Chelsea like to get their players for, the Blueco model, right? Under 25, but generally 20. I think our average squad age was like 23 or something for the last couple of seasons. So this is going to, really start pushing that up. We are looking at experienced players, even Maxence Lacroix, who we're going to talk about a little bit later, 26 as well. So Xabi Alonso has come in and said, I need older players for the first team. So yeah, look, this isn't such a crazy difference though, is it? This kind of thing makes sense. Like the Granit Xhaka situation is they bought him for 17 mil. He was instrumental to their season and he played well, which you would argue would mean his value would increase, albeit he's a year older. So going in with an 8 mil bid when it's probably going to be somewhere from 15 to 20 or maybe a little bit more than that, that seems a little bit weird. But this one makes a lot more sense. If they value him above 15 mil, 16, 17 max, then maybe we meet in the middle at 15 or, sort of 13, 14, something like that. That's not such a difference. That's kind of feels more like a normal negotiation. So, the player might feel a little bit underwhelming to a lot of us who had never heard of him before, but it does feel like to me he's not being brought in to just go straight into the first team. He was a big player for Rayo Vallecano last season. He got into the La Liga team of the week at least once that season, and it feels like to me that he's being brought in to be the rotational option rather than to come in and replace Marc Cucurella, right? So let's have a little look at I've kind of done a little bit like this before, but I've added this heat map, a couple of cursory stats for Pep Chavarría, his appearances and whatnot, and the player profile. So Pep Chavarría, Spanish player. He is 28 years old, but basically just turned 28 years old, so he won't be 29 until next April. He's a defender, which is interesting because a lot of the time we've looked at these and we're looking at wing backs, it kind of has them down on SofaScore as a midfielder, but they've got him down as a defender, so he generally plays left back. 174 centimetres, not the tallest guy, but not short by any stretch. He's taller than Marc Cucurella. Left-footed and wore the number 3 at Rayo Vallecano. In La Liga for Rayo Vallecano last year, he made 44 appearances, which is good because it means he can stay fit for a season. He scored 1 goal and got 3 assists with a average SofaScore rating of 6.8, which actually is higher than Marc Cucurella's average SofaScore rating, which was 6.66. Bum, bum, bum. But yeah, he actually, and albeit the leagues are different, whatever, but not in terms of Marc Cucurella's best season, he wasn't anywhere up near there, but at the very least by a small amount it looks like he performed better for his team in general than Marc Cucurella did for us last season. So he made 8 appearances also in the Europa Conference League, getting 1 of his assists there, and 3 appearances in La Liga, scoring 1 goal and getting 2 assists. So the math isn't math in there, so I must have missed out one of the, probably a cup competition or something. But all of his numbers came from the Conference League and La Liga that season. So look, 3 assists and 1 goal. Not exactly tearing up trees. A little bit. I think Marc Cucurella got only 1 or 2 more GA than that last season as well. And then we take a look at his heat map, which is actually kind of interesting. So we looked at Marco Palestra's heat map recently, right? And Marco Palestra's heat map is like married to that right-hand side. He is an absolute byline guy. Pep Chavarría, I'm not going to call him an inverting fullback, but he spends a lot more time getting into midfield. So that's quite interesting, which profile-wise, because I actually had a quick look at Cucurella's heat map next to this as well. And Cucurella obviously spent a bit more time in midfield, but not a significant amount actually last season. So with Pep Chavarría, profile-wise, we're maybe looking at something slightly similar to Marc Cucurella in that respect. He gets in the, he's defending in the box as well. There's quite a few spots of red in there, which is good. And I think it's interesting because he spends a lot of time hugging the byline, because you can see there's like 2 lines on either side, on either half, where it's just like bang, absolutely on that byline, but then does spend a lot of time getting into midfield as well. But generally you can see he spends the majority of his time in the lower half defending, which is good. And it looks like he's never really, not never, like there's obviously some yellow spots in the box, but he's not really spending much time getting into the box either. And with his relatively low output at the end of the day, and I did look back through the last 5-6 seasons, always kind of the same. This is generally the output he's been getting for the last few seasons. So this isn't an outlier season in terms of like he's done really well or really bad this season compared to usual. He's kind of always getting in and around 3 to 5 GA per season for Rayo Vallecano, and he's been there at least the last 6-7 seasons or something, because I didn't see any other teams. So it's not like mind-blowingly impressive, but the couple of interesting things about it is it's a player identified by Xabi Alonso and his team, and that totally makes sense, doesn't it? Like you got to think these older players that we're looking at in general, maybe apart from Maxence Lacroix, who isn't an older player really, do you know what I mean? But just like, the Granit Xhaka stuff and the Pep Chavarría stuff, these are players that are being identified by Xabi Alonso and his team. And so that is another reason that I back it at the end of the day. Like the fact that he's 28, he's not going to cost an extortionate amount of money at all. Like it's really not even going to touch the sides on the way down. In terms of if we bought him for £15 million, do you know what I mean? Just to be a good rotational option and a player that Xabi Alonso thinks will fit well into his system. Yeah, that's cool. I'm not super excited about it, but it is good in the depth element, right? Because we've depth has been such an issue for us. Like having the right players to bring off the bench and to be able to put into rotational games has been such an issue for the last few seasons. Now, last season especially, and our balance in general, like it just was weighted really badly at the end of the day. So it looks like Yoro Hato is going to be given a significant role. There's questions about Valentin Barco, what's going on with him at the moment, but Pep Chavarría looks like he's getting close. Just a little bit of wiggle room to meet in the middle of in terms of the deal. But guys, let me know what you think about Pep Chavarría. Do you think that he's going to actually fight for that first team spot, or like me, do you think that he's more likely to be a rotational option? And guys, if you've made it this far into today's episode of the Stamford Sync, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, next up, we're going to talk a little bit about Morgan Rogers and the price. Oh, the price is crazy. Pice posted this via Fabrizio Romano from the Here We Go podcast. Chelsea made a call for Morgan Rogers, but the most likely destination is Arsenal. They are pushing for him. Villa want £130 million. Mate, that's wild. Like, this is just the Elliot Anderson world that we live in now, isn't it? Like, things have been creeping up for a little while, to be honest. Like, £100 million midfielders especially have been flying around for a little while. We bought 2 of them a couple of years ago in Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez. And then you've got the likes, obviously, of Declan Rice as well, and, Florian Wirtz went for quite a lot of money, and, these players that aren't even necessarily all that proven are going for a huge amount of money now. So when you look at the likes of Elliot Anderson, who's shown that he can do well in the Prem, and a Morgan Rogers, who's been a big player for Aston Villa for the last few seasons, it seems wild. 130 mil, I don't think we'll pay it. if there's a swap deal to be done with one or multiple of our players that we're looking to get out. I know that they were interested in Nicholas Jackson for a while. Unai Emery knew him quite well from their time together at Villarreal. But 130 mil is just crazy money, isn't it? Like if it was 100, I'd be like, I feel like that's possible. But the 130 mil price tag, I don't know. I'm not even sure if Arsenal will go for that, because Arsenal... I guess for me, the question with Arsenal was like, what are they going to look like next season? How are they going to play? And if they are going to continue to focus on this very defence-heavy, kind of stodgy, stocky football where it's all free kicks, corners, long throws and good defending, where their attacking players don't really get to flourish as much, are they going to go out and spend £130 million on a Morgan Rogers to ask him to track back and defend all the time? Like, I'm not 100% sure. So if they do go for Morgan Rogers, what I think will be interesting about that is that would be some sort of indication that they're willing, that they're going to change back to playing attacking football. Because obviously they went in for Eze, but it was like nowhere near this amount of money, was it? Absolutely nowhere near this amount of money. So I do find it interesting. It will be interesting to see what happens with Morgan Rogers. Either way, I've got a feeling that he probably moves this summer regardless. And if there's a conversation to be had with Villa about bringing that price down a little bit, I would still love us to go in for him. I know that we've been interested in him for quite a long time, but this is the first time that we've really seen the price about it, do you know what I mean? So it is a little bit wild how much they want for him, but it is what it is. So if we weren't to get Morgan Rogers, potentially there is another target that we are looking at. So Transfer News Live posted this via Court Offside. Chelsea have made initial contact with the representatives of Bournemouth forward Eli Jr. Kroupi as they explore a potential move. The 20-year-old has emerged as a serious attacking target after his breakthrough season. Bournemouth are expected to demand a fee in excess of £100 million, with Arsenal and PSG also keeping a close eye on the French talent. So this is an interesting one. He was 19 years old for the majority of last season. He must only have just turned 20, and his breakout season was wild. Like, I can't even remember what it was, but it was like 18 GA, was it? Something like that. Absolutely phenomenal. Obviously a big part of getting Bournemouth into Europe as well, which was absolutely phenomenal. I wouldn't be hugely surprised to see PSG link with him, to be honest, because there's talks about Bradley Barcola potentially being on his way out. So, this is the kind of kid that maybe could go straight into that squad and, replace him in that kind of fluid rotating front three that they've got. Would I like to go for him? Yeah, of course, absolutely. 100 mil for a 20-year-old with one breakout season in the Premier League, though. This is the thing, isn't it? It's like, so if we don't go for Morgan Rogers because it's 130 mil and we go for this guy, that's still 100 mil for a really young player who's only broken out once. The thing with Morgan Rogers is he's been doing it year on year for a couple of years now. So although that price is exorbitant, not a million miles away from Elliot Anderson, you've seen him do it for a little while. He's young enough to be considered a future prospect still, and he's been doing it in the Premier League, right? Which is, obviously just really important. I like the look of Kroupi. I think everyone likes the look of Kroupi, though, don't we? Let's be honest. Like, if you've watched him play at all, or, you checked him out, he's a very, very interesting talent for sure. But 100 mil for a 21-year-old with one breakout season is a massive, massive risk. Let me know what you think in the comments. Right, next up, we'll talk about Maxence Lacroix. Chelsea Dodgers posted this via Kieran Gill of the Daily Mail and Bobby Manzi. Crystal Palace say no club-to-club talks have opened with Chelsea for Maxence Lacroix as of yet, and the asking price would exceed the £52 million that Brighton secured for Jan Paul van Heck. So, a couple of interesting things in here, actually. There was some news the other day to, I want to say Charlie Cresswell. It was a Cresswell. I can't remember if that was the left back that used to play for West Ham. But Crystal Palace are looking at another centre back at the moment. And it might be a case of they want to get him in before they sell Lacroix so the price doesn't increase. Do you know what I mean? So although it's, Palace saying no club-to-club talks have started yet, that may well be because of some agreement where Palace are trying to get their man before we go in to get Maxence Lacroix. I'm not going to lie to you, if we could get Maxence Lacroix for 52 to 55 million pounds, that's in and around kind of what I would expect for a Premier League ready defender right now, especially one with a bit of winning credentials under his belt. He really stepped up in the absence of Mark Guehi when he went to Man City. Just looks like a really good player, and I'm not put off by 52 mil personally for a player of his quality. I think that would actually be quite reasonable, especially when you consider how much we're looking at throwing around for attackers. But yeah, like I say, I'm not super surprised about it just because of it would make sense to me because potentially there's still a conversation to be had about Adam Wharton as well. And I think the relationship that Chelsea have got with Crystal Palace is actually really underrated. It's a really good one. They are happy to take players on loan or to buy players from us, and they've developed some of our players really well. Like I say, you only go far as back as looking at Mark Gurr. He went Chelsea, Palace, and now one of the best defenders in the league with Man City. Obviously, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Conor Gallagher. They took Trev Chalobah for that first half of the season, and obviously we ended up taking him back. But there is a good relationship there with Crystal Palace, so I'm not surprised that we're not going in like we are with the Sunderland deal for Granit Xhaka, right? Because we don't really have that kind of relationship, that connection with Sunderland. They're already annoyed at us probably because we loaned them Mark Guew at the start of last season and then took him back. But we did give him a little bit of money for him, I think, to kind of grease the wheels for that one. So Sunderland already, like, it's every transfer window at the moment, there's like a shady transfer story between Chelsea and Sunderland for one reason or another. But with Crystal Palace, there's been lots of success there at the end of the day. So, you know, this is a relationship that I hope that we do our best to kind of maintain, because it is always going to be good in order to have Crystal Palace as a club that is willing to receive players from us, whether it be on loan or whether it be to buy players from us and stuff like that. So I'm happy to be patient about Maxence Lacroix. It feels nailed on. Like, anything can happen because the transfer windows can always be wild. Of course they can. But for me, he feels like the right guy. And, you know, I think we'll pay the money that they want. I don't think it's going to be some crazy negotiation. I don't think they're going to come in and be like, we want £80 million for him. I think it will probably happen naturally over the course of time. There's also, you know, Maxence Lacroix is at the World Cup right now as well. Next up, we're going to talk about Tyrique George. Posted this via Simon Johnson from the deal sheet on The Athletic. Breaking: Everton in talks with Chelsea over Tyrique George. Deal progressing well for a fee over £20 million. Yeah, just get it done. I think it's one of those, isn't it? Like, I think this is one of the, I really used to love when academy players would break into the team, but these days it's so hard to get excited about. And, you know, defenders obviously still seem to be doing quite well for the most part. You know, Josh Achiampong, the latest off the line, who looks like he could get into the first team. Levi Colwill before him, Reece James before him. You know, there are definitely academy players that have managed to get through that kind of pathway. You don't see a huge amount of it in terms of attackers and midfielders thus far. But Tyrique George is just another one that looked okay, did all right for us, like scored some important goals. We played him a striker all of the time. I'm not sad about selling Tyrique George, as I wouldn't be for a lot of the attacking talents, because it's so difficult for an attacking talent to break into the Chelsea first team when football is based around going out and spending huge amounts of, like, if we spend 100 mil on Kroupi, or if any, that's the same profile and age of Tyrique George, but obviously he's a lot better. So Tyrique George is nowhere near Kroupi yet, and that's the kind of level that you want in your team. So I wish Tyrique George all of the best. It's another pure profit sale. It just is what it is. If we get 20-25 million, you know, probably 20 million with 5 add-ons, it's going to be something like that, isn't it? It's just it's another player we don't have to worry about anymore. It's a little bit more money to reinvest into the rest of the squad, and I hope he continues to do well in the future. So next up, Andrey Santos. Posted this via Simon Johnson, which was also from the Athletic deal sheet. Andrey Santos is attracting admirers and isn't on the not for sale list. So this is a bit more of an interesting one, because we didn't spend a huge amount of money for Andrey Santos, but he was hailed as a real talent when we got him. He went on a failed loan, you'd have to say, to Nottingham Forest, and then we sent him to Strasbourg. He stayed there for 18 months, became a phenomenal player for them, and got his opportunity to get into the first team in the season just gone. Maresca didn't use him at all. So I guess the problem with Andrey Santos for me is, like, he's been so sporadically used in the grand scheme of things. Like, he gets used in bursts. Largely it was to cover, like, injuries and fitness issues and stuff. But when Maresca got sacked and Callum McFarlane took the wheel, all of a sudden, Andrey Santos back into the team. When Liam Rosenior came in for the first, 8 games in a row, Andrey Santos was playing in midfield, partnering with Moises Caicedo, and it started to look like he might have found his home. He was, you know, he was starting to look really good as well. Then, kind of out of nowhere, just disappeared again. So it's a difficult one with Andrey Santos, because when you look at the midfield profile of what we're looking for, like, obviously Granit Xhaka, deep lying distributor. Adam Wharton, deep lying distributor. Moises Caicedo is obviously the ball winner, the aggressor, and Dario Vasugo is a lot closer to Moises Caicedo's profile than Andrey Santos is. Andrey Santos is a different kind of midfielder that we don't really have in the squad at the moment, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it's just one of those, he might not necessarily fit into the way that we're going to be looking to play now. I really like Andrey Santos, but I just get a feeling if someone comes in with a 40 mil bid for him, then he's gone. Like, I would like to keep him around, but at the same time, we are obviously looking at reinventing our midfield with the likes of Granit Xhaka, even if it's just Granit Xhaka. You know, Romeo Lavia plays that kind of position as well. If we can keep Lavia fit, he's much more of a deep lying distributor than Andrey Santos is. So it'd be nice to keep Andrey Santos, but at the same time, if we're going to be bringing in more midfielders, some of them are going to have to start to go. Like I say, Dario Asugo, I think makes sense to keep because he is more akin to Moises Caicedo. Romeo Lavia, it's the injury thing. If we can get him alone or someone wants to cut, fair enough, but I've just got a feeling it's going to be harder to shift Romeo Lavia. Andrey Santos is fit, young, ready, available, has potential, can score a goal, you know, get an assist and stuff. He showed that at Strasbourg in particular. So, you know, it makes sense that there's going to be admirers for him, and the fact that he wasn't on the untouchables list and the likes of Josh Achiampong were, for instance, kind of shows you that, you know, if someone comes in for the right price for him, he'll probably go. And the last piece of news from today is about pre-season training. Chelsea Dodgers posted this. Chelsea players to report for pre-season training on July 9th. So, today is July the 1st. Today is the day that Xabi Alonso is officially the manager of Chelsea FC. But there was another news story come out as well saying that he's actually not going to be at Cobham for the next couple of days. Why that is? Absolutely no idea, but it doesn't really matter because the players aren't going to start arriving for another week plus. Do you know what I mean? We're looking at another 8 days and until pre-season training starts proper. So, you know, what we are seeing is Dastan Satpayev and Giovanni Quenda are already working on their fitness and training at Cobham right now. They've come in early, and when Xabi Alonso comes in, there's probably going to be a few players around like that he can kind of have a look at and get to know and start to work with, but we're not going to see any players on the grass for another week, and that is when I think things are really going to start to heat up in the transfer window as well, because there's the ideal targets and you know, based on the players, like we sold Cucurella, so we're looking at Chavarría, like that 100% makes sense. We need a centre-back. Everyone in the world knows that we need a centre-back, which is why we're looking at Maxence Lacroix. We know we need another attacker. These are things like, before we've looked at any of the players in the squad, these are areas that we know we need to improve. But when Xabi Alonso's had a couple of weeks training with the team and starting to see how receptive they are to his methods, to his style, to his philosophy, that's when we're going to start seeing players shipped out a little bit more en masse, I think, because the centre-back situation is obviously a massive one at the moment. Benoit Badiashile, Disasi, there's no chance of Disasi getting into the first team, I wouldn't have thought, but you've obviously then got your Tosin and Fofana, the left-wing situation with Jamie Gittins and Alejandro Garnacho, the midfield conundrum, Romeo Lavia, Andrey Santos and Dario Asugo. Like, we've got so many players dotted around. Like, Pedro Neto is a big question mark, actually, which is really interesting. If Pedro Neto is willing to make the change to left wing back, I think he's got a place in the squad, to be completely honest. But if he isn't, then maybe he gets sold because he wants to be an attacking winger somewhere else. The striker situation, we've got 6 strikers on the books now. We've got João Pedro, Liam Delap, Emmanuel Omega, Mark Gu, Dastan Satpayev, and Nicholas Jackson will be coming back from the World Cup at some point. So there's so many strikers to be looking at and to try and figure out, you know, what we're going to do with them as well. And I think this is the thing, wasn't it? It was always going to be a case of you know, the transfer window has started to move. Like, there's targets that we're in for, and we've obviously bought Palestra already, but there's going to be a couple of players that Xabi Alonso will want to take a look at. I said this on my last podcast with Talking Chelsea, Jay from Talking Chelsea. You've got absolutely no idea at all which players Xabi Alonso is going to turn into monsters as well. That's the thing. It's really easy for us to look at how players have performed under the last few managers they've had. Now, this isn't me saying I think this specific thing will happen. This is just my example, right? Xabi Alonso might come in, look at Alejandro Garnacho and be like, you're fantastic, you're brilliant. And Alejandro Garnacho absolutely loves him and turns into this beast of a player. That's picking a name out of the hat. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it could happen with absolutely anyone. It could be Jamie Gittins, could be Liam Delap. It's really interesting. If you look at Xabi Alonso's Bayer Leverkusen team, Grimaldo wasn't really pulling up trees anywhere before Xabi Alonso got hold of him. Victor Boniface, their striker, wasn't exactly smashing it and a really, really coveted name. And even Granit Xhaka wasn't exactly like heralded as this unbelievable general and this amazing deep-lying distributor until Xabi Alonso kind of had his way with him. So it's going to be really interesting to start to see, and we're going to start seeing this relatively soon, I think. Not only what players are we going to bring in, obviously it's the transfer window. We all love talking about what players that we're going to see brought in, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see which players already in the squad does Xabi Alonso look at and be like, I like your personality and I think your skill set is good. And it might even be a case of like, I'm actually going to turn you, like, you know, how many of our attacking players get turned into wing-backs? Pedro Neto, Giovanni Quenda, Jamie Gittins even potentially on that right side, could be the next Jeremy Frimpong in waiting. Like, we just don't know. And that is why I think we haven't been shipping out all of these players en masse yet. I know there's a lot of hysteria around it, and a lot of the Chelsea fan base are very much like, oh, we've got all of these players that we need to get rid of. It's like, you don't know that Xabi Alonso isn't going to come in to take a look at Benoit Badiashile, and look, like, I laugh genuinely, because like, to me that seems crazy, because we've seen him for the last few years and he's been mostly terrible. But Xabi Alonso might see something that we don't see, and that is, like I say, this is just my justification of why we haven't gone ham in the transfer market so far. We have got 2 months from today, and this is wild, because so many moves are happening already. Like, Tottenham have basically completely reconstructed their midfield and defence already. Barcelona have been going out there buying loads. Real Madrid, Jose Mourinho's Real Madrid is looking fire next season, and it's really easy to feel like we're getting lost and we're getting left behind, but it's July the 1st and the window doesn't close until September the 1st. We have got exactly 2 months from today to start signing players at the end of the day. The window's only been open for 2 weeks, and look at what's already happened. Do you know what I mean? We got Marco Palestra. We're now talking about Granit Xhaka. We're talking about Maxence Lacroix. You know, there's names starting to be linked all over the place. It's been a slow start to the transfer window. That's absolutely true. But 2 months is a long time. And there's going to be training, preseason games, couple of games in the Premier League. Like, I expect the goalkeeper situation not to be fully settled until the transfer window closes, to be completely honest. If there are players still around, like Mike Mignon, or if there are players still around like what's his name, Diogo Costa, and we're not happy with the Mike Penders, Robert Sanchez battle that's going on, and Xabi Alonso's like, no, don't want either of these guys, let's go and get a proper guy, maybe that's something that's going to happen. So, you know, we just need to kind of pump the brakes on it a little bit and realise that there's still 2 months left to go. Things are starting to happen now. We have signed a player, we are starting to sell players, the World Cup is, you know, halfway through kind of thing, and things are going to start moving really quickly, really soon. And for me, all of that really starts when Xabi Alonso has had the opportunity to start training with the team and identify who he wants to keep and who he wants to sell. Because if we, you know, Xabi Alonso might already have his eye on some players in terms of profile, right? Ones that we, like I say, like a Garnacho, for instance, ones that we've kind of written off because they've had a bad season. And he might be like, don't sell him yet because I want to try him out in this position, or I want to try talking to him like this, and I want to see if I can get this out of him. And that's not going to happen straight away overnight. It's going to take a little while. So look, I think we're going to have a massive transfer window. You know, all of the PR at the start said it was going to be relatively quiet. We were only looking for a few additions and stuff. But if you look at all of the players that we're already looking at, like the likes of, you know, we bought in Palestra. We weren't talking about right wing backs at all. We're looking at bringing in Chavarría to replace the outgoing Marco Correa. We're, you know, the midfield thing with Granit Xhaka. Does that mean that we also strengthen that deep-lying distributor position with the likes of an Adam Wharton in the future as well? Absolutely wild. But, you know, it's all going to be good fun. And like I say, I'm just so excited to see Xabi Alonso's Chelsea get started. So, you know, I'm here for pre-season. I can't wait until the season starts. And I think a lot is going to happen before then. So, guys, that's it. I'm going to wrap up today's video. But I would like to know about what you think about everything that we've talked about today. Pep Chavarría, we've taken a very cursory look at his profile, his stats. The money that we're looking at is probably, you know, 15 mil-ish. Yeah, call it an average 15 mil. I wouldn't have thought it'd get to 20. But what do you think of Pep Chavarría? Let me know in the comments. 130 mil for Morgan Rogers. Should we still go in for him, or should we start looking at a cheaper Morgan and Gibbs White? Eli Jr. Kroupi is also another player that we have been linked with, but 100 mil for a 20-year-old with one breakout season feels dangerous, albeit he looked phenomenal. No talks of Maxence Lacroix yet, but as I explained, I have a feeling that, you know, we're not going to push Crystal Palace like we're pushing Sunderland because of the relationship that we've got there. Tyrique George to Everton, 20 mil. I think just get it done. Would you sell Andrey Santos? Do you know, if someone comes in with the right money, or do you think he's the kind of player that we should be looking to keep around? And 8 days from today, the players will start to report for pre-season training with Xabi Alonso, and I can't wait.